All right, Krista, thanks so much for doing this. My first question that I have for you is tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you started in the community.
Yes, absolutely. So my name's Krista Giffin, and I got started in therapy. Oh, it's kind of a roundabout way. Do you know that on my very first job, those tests they make you take in college that try to tell you what kind of career you'd be good at? They
Yeah.
said I would be a psychologist, but back in those days, I wanted to be an actor. So I went the actor route first, and then I became a teacher for many years, a music teacher, which I really loved. I love working with kids. And then when the pandemic came about, I had been thinking about possibly changing careers for a while. Even though I really love teaching, I was looking for something that was a little bit more flexible in terms of schedule and maybe a little bit slower in terms of energy. And so I decided to go back to grad school and get my second grad degree. And now I'm a therapist and I really love it. I love working one-on-one with people.
So tell me a little bit about the work that you do as a therapist. What do you do in your current role?
So in my current role, I work with women, professional women, who are dealing with overwhelm, burnout, stress, people who they're having a hard time balancing their busy, active professional lives with their personal lives. And sometimes their personal lives are taking a hit. So sometimes I also work with couples of that particular type of woman. Because the same things tend to keep coming up, where the partner maybe is not feeling either the partner isn't feeling like they're getting enough attention or the relationship has just kind of like petered out a bit because of the lack of time and attention for it, or the woman is overloaded and stressed at the end of the day, can't give any more. And those are some common themes that I see with my clients.
So what sorts of modalities do you do in your role to sort of help those folks, who are going through those struggles?
Yeah. Well, I use a variety of methods. I work a bit psychodynamically, but I really like some of the interventions from solution focused brief therapy. I also was a coach for many years and I still coach. But coming from the coaching background, it's a bit more, po- well, positive oriented isn't really the exact right phrase, but it's a little bit more in the kind of towards positive psychology. I guess that is correct. So a little bit more leaning towards what the solution is versus what the problem is, even though I'm completely all about talking about what is the issue as well and feeling your feelings and all of that. So I don't do any of the bypassing your feelings if someone's in depression or if they're having anxiety. Of course we're going to look at that too, but also looking towards the future and what they want to have in their life as well.
hmm So like my next question is, what does that look like in the therapy session? If a couple or an individual is having struggle with, balancing their work life and professional life, what do you sort of do to sort of help them through those struggles?
Mm. Well, it really, I mean, that's the beauty of one-on-one. A lot of it becomes very specific to whoever I'm working with. But some of the overarching themes that I've seen, one is just starting with getting a grasp on what's going on for the individual person. So a lot of women come to me with anxiety because they're doing too much. So starting to put boundaries up, having them say no to things that they don't want to do or can't do. Putting up boundaries up with their families or their relationships, because oftentimes these women are just doing everything. They're doing all the cooking, the cleaning, the child raising, their job, and they need to start learning to say no and getting some time for themselves. And that's another part. Like often the first thing to go is their own self-care or their own time for themselves, their social time with their friends, that sort of thing that gets counted as like not important. in their lives, but that's actually the needs to be more of a priority because that's the thing that fuels your energy and keeps you healthy and keeps you well. And if you're burnt out, you can't keep going forward. You can't help your family. You can't be with your partner. So you need to start with yourself and then let that expand into your relationships.
Hmm.
It's not easy. These are not easy for women, especially the kind of woman that is generally drawn to me. It's hard for her to put herself first.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of us now, it's really hard for us to say no to things because we want to be so committed to doing stuff. I remember I
Mm,
watching a movie once, and it talked about this guy, and he was like trying to figure out how to sort of, what to sort of do in terms of like do I accept this commitment? Do I do this? Do I do that? And then he looks towards this book from some guy, and that always says, you always have to say yes to everything. You always have to say yes to this and that and this and that. But then oftentimes that's not the case. So I feel like that's what our society is often struggling with, in terms of like when to say no to things.
absolutely. I mean, that's a carryover of capitalism, right? And I'm not completely against capitalism, but there are some aspects of it that it carries over into our own lives where we continue to just do, um, earn in order to spend. And again, I'm all about earning and spending as well. But some of these things we don't even know we're like on this treadmill that we can slow down and or step off of.
My next question is, what have you learned in doing this kind of work, like as a mental health professional, and what do you still hope to learn, in terms of learning something new, that kind of
Mm,
thing?
yeah, that's a good question. I learn a lot. I learn because if you can't help but learn if you're seeing people, 4 or 5 different clients a day and listening to all their lives, I learn so much from my clients, too, because there are things that are common amongst all of us, and when you hear it coming back to you, it hits you from a different direction, and sometimes it can sink into your awareness a little bit more easily. I know one of the things that really helped me, believe it or not, is couples counseling because I'm married too. But when I would be in a couples counseling session with my clients and working with them on their patterns, their way they argue or fight, and what's really underlying the argument. It's never really about what the argument is. It's something underneath. Um, when I started to hear both sides of the story, I would be like, oh, that's actually me in the relationship. I need to fix that in my own relationship and, be a better partner there. And oh, that's like a lot like my husband when he's doing this, he probably actually feels this. And it was nice. I got a lot just from hearing it from a separate space instead of being inside of the relationship. When you're in it, you are more easily things affect you more strongly because you're personally connected. But when you see it a little bit removed from yourself, it's a little bit easier to see the patterns and learn. So that's something I learned. What would I still like to learn? Oh, I mean, I'm a Gemini, so I could learn indefinitely, and I think I'd be super happy. I I would like to learn some more trauma treatment methods like EMDR, which is super effective. I'd really like to get into some of the psychedelic therapies that are there that help with the really hard major depression, and some of the more ingrained like neural patterning. Psychedelic therapies can help to loosen those up. So there's a lot. I could go on and on about all the things I want to learn.
Hmm. My last question is, like, what can people take away from this conversation? How can people sort of, learn how to balance that work and personal life struggle that people so often, struggle to really accomplish because oftentimes it's really hard to balance the work and the personal life. So what what are your tips, pieces of advice that you would give to those folks that are in, that sort of headspace?
Yeah. Well, again, it is individual because everybody has their own like specific difficulties, but some more generic or general tips that I would give is to look at what fuels you and what energizes you and make sure you are keeping that a part of your week. Um, for example, let's say you like to go play tennis with your friends or some other sport, or you like to dance, or you like to read, or whatever it is that you like to do. Make sure that you're adding some of that into your week. And if possible, even daily, because just a little bit of tuning into what is something that's enjoyable for you can kind of get you out of that rut. It's very easy to get into just, oh, I'm working, 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 and I have no time to slow down. But actually, we do. We do have time to stop, to slow down, even if it's just for a few minutes. And another thing that I really recommend, and it's often hard for people to get started, is meditation. Do you do meditation, or have you
Uh,
tried it?
I don't do meditation, although that is a good strategy.
Mm. Yeah, a lot of people have, I think it's difficult for many people to start. They want to start, or they don't, they sit down and they try and they're like, my thoughts are just going, going, going. But that is what happens. That is part of meditation. So if you can just accept that and allow your thoughts to pass and just notice them and then come back to your breath, taking that time out, even if it's as little as I've had people start on even just 1 minute a day, but keeping it consistent and then slowly building up, try to build up to 10 minutes. I personally do around 20 a day. Some people who are really wonderful meditators, they'll go into 45 minutes, hour, whatever. But I can keep 20 minutes consistent. And even a lot of research has shown that 10 minutes will start to change your brain patterning. And it's so helpful for your mood regulation, for your calmness, and your lowering anxiety, lowering stress levels, visualizing. If you use it for that, there's just a lot of benefits to meditation. So I highly recommend meditation, and I recommend exercise, which some people are excited about and some people aren't. But, if you make it something that you like, whatever it is, just getting outside. There's also been a lot of studies that show that 20 minutes a day out in the sunlight can improve your mood quite a bit. Um, and exercise, there's multiple studies that show that exercising is as effective as antidepressants in many cases. It's just that people who are depressed sometimes have a difficulty getting themselves out the door to exercise. So sometimes medication can be helpful in that area. But exercise is a really great mood booster. It's also um, it's the end of the stress cycle. So if you've been building up stress in your body, which we all do because today's society, there's just so much going on, traffic, bills, whatever, and it all feels like stress to our system. If you exercise, that completes the stress cycle, and that helps to reset your whole body and your whole mood. And then the endorphins you get from like I used to not be an exerciser, actually. And so now I'm fairly consistent. I'm not like all the time exercising, but I do 3 or 4 days a week, and it's really made a difference in my own life. So I do take my own medicine. I do practice what I preach. So I recommend that too. But find something you like. That's important, the key
All right.
to it.
Yeah, that is important. Mhm. All right.